Hello. How are we going, guys? Thanks for coming. We'll get started in a minute with a live Q&A. So I think most people here are for the crypto meetup. So hopefully the speakers, you guys hear down the back all right down there? Turn it up, turn it up. Hello. Yeah, it's coming out there. Hello, is that better? Yeah, I think that's a bit better. Thanks, guys. If we can keep it down at the back there, we'll get started with the live Q&A. So thanks for coming, everyone. No? Still not loud enough. Okay. We'll do our best. Sorry the lighting's not better out here. How's that? So thanks for coming, guys. For those that don't know, I'm Alex, or Nugget. I run Nugget's News, Australia's biggest cryptocurrency YouTube channel. To my right, I've got Trader Cobb, and I'll let him introduce himself and say a few words.
My name's Craig, aka Trader Cobb, and yeah, I've been trading for 11 years, probably into crypto about 6 months ago or so, and now I'm dead. Are we good now? We can't take any questions because I can't hear anything now. So, yeah. So Trader Cobb, I'm founder of TraderCobb.com. I do educational stuff. I'm a trader of 11 years. Trying to just spread the message of teaching you good technical analysis, stuff that works that I've been doing. Checklist for years and years and years. I'm part of one of Australia's first cryptocurrency fund, Crypto Revolution Investments. And yeah, I just teamed up with Nugget. As many of you will see my video content, my technical analysis on the Nuggets News groups and Facebook and whatnot. And that's about it.
And to my left, we have the founder of Horizon State. So if you follow Nuggets News YouTube and invested in the ICO, every $100 you put in is now worth $100,000. So thanks, Jamie.
Hello. I've given a similar spiel that some of the other legs of Nuggets tour around Australia, which is just to say, obviously, thank you for those of you that share our vision, believe in what we're doing, and have supported us financially, morally, otherwise. It's quite an honour, and it's been quite profoundly humbling, in fact, to have found the support that we have, and walking through the crowd here, just like in Melbourne and just like in Sydney, people knowing me and saying, you know, I love what you're doing, thanks for the good work, it means a lot. And so far as what's going on in blockchain in this country right now, I think we will have a lot to be proud of, as you know, whether you come to Australia or whether you're born here. I think anybody that's here generally has a huge amount of respect for the things that come out of this country, be it music, talent, or otherwise. And I think per head of capita, we are punching above our weight right now in a really big way. It's quite impressive to see the quality of projects coming out of this country. Powerled's are obviously another massively successful token sale who are doing some pretty incredible things in regards to peer-to-peer energy trading and helping democratise and create equality in brand new ways that we've never seen before until the birth of this kind of technology. Something I will mention before we get stuck into the Q&A just quickly is that for anybody who's been following what we're doing at Horizon State, over the past few days, one of Australia's most popular token exchanges, CoinSpot, has been talking relatively lightheartedly about which token they should list next, and asking a question of whether that should be Horizon State. And I'm pleased to say that as of about 7 minutes ago, CoinSpot are now also trading Horizon State tokens. So, thanks again. I can't say it enough, but I won't repeat myself too much. Looking forward to the questions, Horizon State, cryptography, blockchain, or otherwise. It should be a good night as per the rest of the talk.
So guys, shuffle forward a little bit if you like. In Melbourne we had people under our noses. There's a packed house, so shuffle forward if you can't hear, and we'll get into some Q&A. So I got into Bitcoin in 2012, and I've seen it change a lot in the past 6 years. I tried to annoy all my friends to get into this crazy internet money called Bitcoin, and they weren't interested. And then I think in 2017 was the first wave of mass awareness. And that's obviously why all you guys are here. So we're definitely a long way off mass adoption. We're not using cryptocurrency in our everyday lives, and that's where I see it going in the future. And the other message that I guess I'd like to get across is that Bitcoin, digital money, is only the first example and use case of blockchain technology. So projects like Horizon State, Power Ledger, all those other ones that we've covered on the channel and that you guys are probably aware of, we're breaking into different industries in a variety of fields. So when I hear stuff like cryptocurrency is tulip mania, it's definitely not, okay? So education is the key. That's why we focus on that on our channel. Take the time to learn about the technology. I find that you're going to get financially rewarded a lot better than those guys that are randomly throwing their money at 20 things and hoping that one of them goes to the moon, okay guys? So it's been a pleasure going on tour around Australia. The success of the first couple of events saw that Jamie and Trader Cobb jumped on board. Cobb's from a financial background and trading background. Obviously, Jamie's an expert at what he does with the government relations and all that sort of thing. So we'll throw it to you guys. Throw your hand up, ask some questions, and we'll do our best to answer. Don't be shy.
The biggest hurdle.
Yell it out nice and loud.
What do you think the biggest hurdle that Bitcoin or any related cryptocurrencies is going to face coming into the next 3 to 5 years?
So the question was, what are the biggest hurdles in the next 3 to 5 years? So from my point of view, we're seeing that we're at the point now where there's so many people using Bitcoin and Ethereum that they're being pushed to the limits from a technical point of view. So we need to scale. Now, the main blockchain exists for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and what's going to fix it? The most likely solution is those off-chain networks. So we're going to have networks to the side of the main blockchain, the main network, and that's called the Lightning Network. We're waiting to see who solves that problem the best. Whoever does it best, it may be a smaller coin, but at the moment, Bitcoin's got that first mover advantage. Bitcoin itself is becoming a store of value, and then we want those second layer solutions for Lightning networks to be how we can pay for coffee, and it doesn't cost us too much in fees. It should be free, it should be instant if they build those Lightning networks in the right way. And whoever does it best is going to capture a lot of market share. So.
Yeah, I think scaling is an obvious problem, but I think we've got a few hurdles. We've got technological hurdles, we've got societal hurdles, we've got governmental hurdles and regulatory hurdles. The next few years is going to be really, really interesting from a regulatory point of view as well. I think what I sort of hope pans out is that until the point that we start seeing the people decide in respect to token sales and legitimacy and their rights, that we don't see too much preemptive regulation pushed out from the governing bodies that necessarily hampers the innovation. So that most of the world's greatest innovation ever has been in unregulated or lightly regulated environments, and we are back in that position right now. So I think in a lot of ways, what the government can do right now with most damage is come down too hard on the situations and scenarios that are unfolding within this industry and within this ecosystem. And I think a good example of what I personally might like to see happen is, instead of necessarily the ASIC or the ATO or the SEC in the US come out with heavy-handed regulations, is let the people decide. And so if there are obviously fraudulent cases that need to be addressed, let the people take it to court and set a precedent, rather than trying to create regulatory before the fact. Now, whether that happens or not is yet to be seen. But what I really hope we don't see ultimately in terms of cause and effect is the power taken away from the people to invest in ideas that they believe in a brand new, incredibly democratic way. So philosophically and personally, something that I loved about the ICO process for Horizon State, despite the fact that it was the most stressful period of my entire life, is that we were literally able to welcome people into our community, so to speak, which is how a lot of this is phrased within the blockchain and token ecosystem, to participate whether they were accredited or not. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know a whole lot of really talented designers and developers, smart accountants and other business people who aren't accredited, who in fact make a lot of decisions that are far better than a lot of accredited investors I know. So I feel like we are limiting the pool of capital that can flow into great ideas by saying you have to be accredited. And in a lot of ways, in previous startups, I honestly felt a little bit odd, really only making wealthy people more wealthy. People that are accredited, they've got $2 million bucks in the bank and make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. They're doing okay already. What I really fell in love with was the idea that we could help democratize investment opportunity and thus democratize wealth generation opportunity. And so regulation is going to be a potentially big hurdle, but I think we'll get there. I honestly think that there's obviously too much good happening here for most reasonable and sensible governments to try and come and shut it down entirely.
Can you turn it off? Yeah, turn it off! We can't hear it here! Turn it off!
Move that speaker out.
Can we shut those doors as well, guys? Is that going to stop some of the sound? Guys, shuffle forward. There's heaps of room in front of you. Shuffle forward.
Well, do we want to move over there?
Try and put that speaker on the table as well.
You boys give me some help putting this up here.
Just give us a sec.
Wow, look at it over there. Just watch those cords there, that's all. Should be right.
Alright, can you hear a bit better now? Is that better? Alright. Quite apt, isn't it? It's the scalability issue of cryptocurrency, and we have got scaling issues within our cryptocurrency meet. Does no one see the funny side in that? Am I the only one? Am I literally the only one that gets that?
Alright, next question.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
As an investor, what would you consider is the best ratio of things like Bitcoin to altcoins? If you put 70% in Bitcoin and 30% in altcoins, or what's your
So the question was, what's the best ratio to invest in the Bitcoins like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin versus all these new altcoins we're seeing? So first off, I've got to say that I'm not a licensed financial advisor. That's actually a 5-day course. So last year, my advice to people was, I made a YouTube video called Best Portfolio Structure, and my advice was to have 70% in Bitcoin, Ethereum and Litecoin. Now those 3 coins had an amazing run last year, up 100-fold. So this year my advice has been a little bit different. We've maybe lightened up on things like Bitcoin. Now Bitcoin's touched $20,000, it's very hard for that to go up another 10-fold to get to $200,000 US. So I'm certainly picking my favourite coins that I see have the most upside, the best coins, and I've covered those in videos on YouTube, the majority of those coins. So yeah, I think the landscape is changing somewhat, and Bitcoin does have headwinds, but there's a number of things that are going to push the Bitcoin price higher if it gets an ETF or a number of ETFs, exchange-traded funds. So yeah, there's still plenty to like about it, but now we've got a lot of other investment opportunity as well.
Something else to consider as well in that like it's a sort of double-loaded question. One of the other things to consider is your risk appetite. So cryptocurrency inherently is, does have a degree of risk. We understand that it's an incredibly volatile market. To see 10-15% a day. I mean, we've been relatively stable recently with only 5 to 10% swings in Bitcoin. I mean, I've been trading for 11 years, and 5 to 10% anything else is never sneezed at. Like, that is just full on, right? So understanding your risk appetite is really important. Somebody who's managing $10 million as opposed to somebody who's managing 1,000, you may have the same risk appetite, or you may not. You may not want to touch Bitcoin because 1,000 will probably not be 100,000 at the end of the year, okay? You might go looking for some of those smaller cap opportunities, and therefore you'll need to be more educated and research harder, but that's where the opportunity lies. So it's about risk, it's about the reward you're chasing, and it's about trading or investing based on the education that you get. And at least you guys have got some good sources of that at the moment.
And if you had, let's say you had $10,000 to invest, would you be going into 3 to 5 coins, or would you be spreading it to like 10 to 20?
The extension of that question is, say you had $10,000 to invest, would you be going 3 to 5 coins, or would you be going more? And that's a personal question to me. I'd be going more personally because I know my appetite for risk and I like my appetite for diversification. And also there's so many bloody good projects out there right now that I'd hate to just be, sit back and not support some fantastic projects just because I'm going to hang on to Litecoin. Do you know what I mean? So there is it's a personal choice, and I have neither done that 5-day course either. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just me, Trader Cobb. I'm a trader. But again, it comes down to individual preference.
So mate, it's the aim of the game generally. I'm a newbie, but the aim of the game to be collecting the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, etc., and then keeping a surplus in order to make profits off the new coins. Is that the whole idea of building up, I guess, your resume of those stronger coins?
Yeah. So the question is, I call it harvesting. Okay, so when I'm trading, I might go into a trade. So when I say trade, Alex here does the fundamental stuff. I do the technical stuff. So when I trade, I literally mean a trade of entry, stop loss, targets, yada yada. So what I'll do is I've got the coins or the tokens like Ethereum. They're my store, if you will. But I'll trade as long as it's got enough volume. Therefore, I can get a decent position. I'll trade anything. Again, it's a very personal question. I don't mean it as in the sense of how dare you ask me such a personal question. I mean it in the sense of it's personal to your own self. When I'm investing, when I hold the token, if that token is done, say, a 10x, and I want to lock in some profit because I think that it's gone just a bit too silly, I'll always keep some. Okay, and that's more so for me, for the psychological element of, you sell all of it and then it goes up another 100 times and you're going, oh! You've got to keep it cool. You've got to keep yourself in a level-headed position. And I always talk about the power of now and being grounded, and that helps me with that, to know that I'll never have, what's it called? FOMO. I'm learning all this new language at the same time, right? HODL and FOMO.
Yeah, look, I don't normally talk on these topics in respect to investment, but I think a good way to break it down from my perspective is less about is it Bitcoin or is it Ethereum, and more about what do those coins or what do those tokens accomplish, and what is the potential market cap, and compare that to your sort of risk ratio, I suppose. And so when you think about a coin such as Bitcoin or Litecoin, these are financial instruments. They are intended to, in one way, shape or form, replace a store of value or replace a medium of exchange that exists today in our current traditional financial system. And if you start to think about these tokens in the scope of traditional finance systems, then the market caps don't really relate to the same ones as businesses and tokens, because a market cap for Bitcoin you might perceive as $20 trillion. And in fact, some people were having the same conversation in our Horizon State telecom just earlier, where there is a very, very specific difference between the market cap, so to speak, of a currency, a digital coin that is intended to perform as a currency, versus a token which is intended to be a utility and serve a very specific function and disrupt a specific industry or replace an existing business model. So just make sure that you're relatively clear on what it is you're investing in and what the potential upside is. That will help you better evaluate how much you should be putting into what, based on your risk appetite, based on the market cap. Yeah.
Just one more, mate. And where would you consider, in your portfolio to take up fiat currency? Is that something that you do on a regular basis, or would you always be putting up your...
Start again. Start up.
Fiat currency, would you take up profits in the form of fiat currency, or continue to build up your cryptocurrency?
It's just up to you if you think Bitcoin's going to keep going up, or if you want to cash out dollars and spend it on real world things, different cash implications for all those sort of things as well. So yeah, individual circumstances, how you take profits.
What are you expanding Nugget use?
So for those that don't know, we have a premium service that I don't like to advertise. We do hundreds of hours of content for free, and I'll continue to do so. We've reached the capacity, we've got thousands of people on the waiting list, and we're building a new website. So yeah, hopefully very soon we'll be able to add more people in.
It seems like everything to do with China and Korea causes the markets the same. Do you think in the future we'll be free of those two markets? Or if so, who do you think will replace them?
So the question was, every time something happens in China or Korea, the markets tank. Yeah, the markets are pretty sensitive to those two countries at the moment, because at the time when everything happened in China to do with the ICO ban and whatnot, exchanges ban, they were responsible for the majority of trading volume, so it is important. And now Korea's playing that role. So yeah, it's definitely important. The knee-jerk reaction is to the downside. In the stock market world, that might cause a couple of percent. In the crypto world, these things are down, 10 or 20% today or more. So if you've done your research and you've got your education, you believe in those coins, it's a good opportunity to buy more of those good projects like Horizon State and the Power Ledgers. These things are all highly correlated to Bitcoin from a price point of view when they shouldn't be. There's no reason for Horizon State to go down in price because Bitcoin's going down in price because of something that's happened in Korea. Unfortunately, these markets are in their infancy and they're all trading in a highly correlated fashion. That just presents opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'll add to that a bit too. I mean, look, at the end of the day, what I've noticed, as I say, 11 years trading, this market it's incredibly young. It's incredibly young, it's very immature, and it's like a toddler in the way it has some pretty crazy tantrums. Why? Just because. So a lot of the moves don't necessarily make sense, but it's a herd mentality, and that's the human emotion element that really drives it. Because we haven't got massive institutional money that has arrived on these shores, right? Because we haven't got this, it's us. We are the market. It's us. So if we get scared, we go, beep, sell. And it goes, poof, right? Because we're talking about an entire market cap that is just touched or just getting close to Apple, one company. We've got so much growing to do. It's absolutely insane, and that's where the opportunity lies. So that's what it comes back to. Like, if as a trader, you shouldn't be emotional in your decisions. You're meant to be boring with batshit, excuse my French, and just sort of be, you know, checklist, follow rules, blah blah blah, boring, 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 and that's what works because you get conviction and you stick with it. And you don't care about what anyone else is saying. When someone comes out like this Korea dip, FUD, dud, whatever you want to call it. If you got the smarts, you go, you're a ripper. This ain't gonna last long. I'm buying more. And so you can use these I call them opportunities because they are. When the market gets emotional, if you're cool, you'll be real cool in a few more weeks. I think that's a really important thing to grasp is how emotional it is. Keep control of your emotions. And I'm in some pretty high-end groups with large amounts of cryptocurrency, and these people have made a huge amount of money in a very short amount of time, and it's actually ruined their lives. They're so anxious, they're so scared, they don't sleep. You think that the money's meant to give us freedom, right? The growth that these people have had is meant to give them the freedom. That's what this whole industry is about. But they're trapped inside of their own heads. If they can escape from their heads and realise that they're actually in a damn good position, they've done very well, they can actually enjoy it. But they're too emotional. And when you make money really, really, really quickly, and sometimes just get bloody lucky, let's be honest, all right? Because these early people in it, they might have just got lucky. It's really hard to understand the emotional toll that it has on them. So again, coming back to that education, you've got to understand what's going to happen before it happens, so you equip yourself with the right tools to deal with it correctly without, you know, blowing out and losing your mind.
Yeah, so every year that Bitcoin's been around, it's gone down 50 to 90%. So it's nothing new, guys. It tests those people that understand it and are convinced for the long term versus those that are worried about making a quick buck. So. So the question was in regards to the bias of mainstream media, and it's something that, you know, you've got to put your tinfoil hat on a little bit, and in some ways you don't. It's just crazy to see what the way that they are trying to paint this in a bad light, calling it a darknet drug currency. If you look at the stats, the use on the darknet has been steadily declining since a few years ago. Yeah, unfortunately, the people that run and own the news outlets, they own the banks in the most instance. You know, it's corporations. We know that. We know they're scared. It's happened to several industries in the past where the disruptor, you know, that Gandhi saying about first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And we're definitely a long way along that curve. You know, I get ads flashing up on my Facebook now that Commonwealth Bank's going to have instant settlement payments next year, and you know, it's just they're trying to fight it, they're trying to stall it, but the fact is cryptocurrency is far better than the legacy system. And as long as more people find out about it, more people are going to use it. So,
I'm worried. I think it might get worse before it gets better, because normally when any kind of powerful institution is starting to lose control, there's usually some turmoil. A really good friend of mine is sitting in the front here, Katrina. I met Katrina in South Korea. I was presenting Horizon State blockchain technology to an international forum of mayors in a town that I can't pronounce anymore, so I won't try. But she's working on some. That's the one. I'm not even going to try it. She just told it to me. I'm still not going to try and pronounce it. She's working on some incredible blockchain technology. It's called Civic Ledger. Look it up. You know, Queensland-based. And Channel 7 and Channel 9 have been following this tour around. They had cameras in Melbourne. They had cameras in Sydney. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what their Sunday night segments on this looks like. Because Katrina went forward and said, hey, I know some incredible women working on this incredible technology, do you want to speak to them? And they said, no, it's okay, we've already got the pole dance that's accepting Bitcoin. So they're clearly still spinning, nonsense, and I think that might continue for a little while yet, but you know, most new technology, most paradigm shifts in societal behaviour, they're all ridiculed to begin with. People used to get a horse to those driving motor vehicles. People wearing headphones homes were quite literally bashed in the street. So anything new is hard, and people resist change, and we're going to see a lot of that. But I think there is zero doubt in my mind that cryptocurrency is here to stay. That idea that you and blockchain more broadly, of course, which is even more profound, with the opportunity for self-sovereign finance and self-sovereign identity is going to play an enormous part in equalisation across the world. So look, strap in, it's going to be pretty crazy, I think, but it's going to get better, yeah.
Guys, please follow people like myself and Jamie on Twitter. Recently, we tweeted the big 4 banks, and that tweet went viral around the world. It was on the biggest news sites in the world about how the big 4 banks weren't letting people deposit their own money into cryptocurrency exchanges. So, if we can, we're that movement. So if we can't let them get away with it, we've got a far better chance in Australia than in somewhere like the US to push for justice with projects like Jamie and individuals in this space. Everyone's coming for it, but let's be the voice of reason and get behind the right movement, and we can push this in the right direction together. So.
Just following up with that, how do you see projects like Power Ledger or Horizon State operating within existing range of governments?
So the question was to do with how do we see projects like Horizon State and Power Ledger that are disruptors in a big way working within government frameworks. So I'll hand this over to Jamie, I think, but in a lot of ways they're going to be bigger in developing countries is what I've noticed. They're going to bring about more change in those countries where there is not yet that legislation. Unfortunately, it's a barrier in countries like Australia and the US, but I'll hand that over.
Yeah, I think there's enormous challenges for both of our companies and our business models, but they are just challenges, and they're absolutely not insurmountable. You've got Power Ledger, who ultimately right now is trying to establish peer-to-peer energy trading, but right now they still need to borrow the public grid, which is archaic and has huge fees. In fact, pretty much everybody standing or sitting here right now, about half of your power bill is related to fees for the lease of the grid. It's not really to do with your power consumption specifically. So there are fundamental infrastructure-oriented and institutional-oriented changes that are going to be hard to leap past, but as Alex said, some of the greatest opportunity is in fact not in our backyard, but internationally, which is in a lot of ways even more meaningful. The idea, so we've been talking with various individuals in some developing nations. Katrina and I met with the mayor of a province in Afghanistan. Yeah, and this is incredible. Talking to this mayor about the opportunity to help eradicate corruption in his country, in a country that's really rebuilding from the ground up, and they have an opportunity to think about how to do things better, how to do things right, and do so in a much more nimble way than what we can in this very lucky but very slow country. Luck and quality breeds complacency. And the reality is we're all relatively complacent, and so change in our own systems is going to be a lot harder in places that really need it and need it now. But we're getting there. We have a number of really strong opportunities which will turn into pilots and then proper customer systems throughout 2018 with councils in Victoria and a territory here in Australia. Really exciting stuff. We are talking with a state in the United States. We've got opportunities in India and Belgium and a whole bunch of other places. So it's happening. But from our personal perspective as Horizon State, it's not just about the governmental opportunity. This is the obvious one, because when you think about voting, then your mind goes straight to the electoral process of electing a representative. But we have global NGOs with 5 and 10 million members that want to use our platform for membership engagement. We have institutions that want to use it for shareholder voting and annual general meetings. Wherever there is a need to instill additional trust and confidence through transparency and accountability in your democratic process as a business or a government, then the blockchain is a really, really great way to help achieve this.
I guess one of the things that really gave cryptocurrency legitimacy in early 2017 was Japan put their hand up and said, Bitcoin is now legal tender in this country. And for the first time in 30 years, they saw an uptick in their GDP, in their economy. And nobody wants to be first, but nobody wants to be last. And as soon as people start using, it might be one little town, and Power Ledger have already got trials. As soon as they start showing benefit, you know, Horizon State, one country shows that we're transparent. All of a sudden, nobody wants to be the odd one out, and that's where we hit that critical mass. And again, it's up to you guys to drive that, education, tell your friends, all that sort of thing.
How far off do you think we are from coins like Maker trading as stable coin comparing to trading it?
So the question was to do with stable coins. So one of the questions I get a lot is, what if you want to take profits, do you go back to Aussie dollars, or do you trust the US dollar tether, which a lot of people are saying, is that 100% backed? There's a lot of theories out there. So there's a new coin that we've covered on the channel called DAI, and they're making a stable coin, which is basically pegged to every currency. So it's trying to be the ultimate stable coin where it will always be worth roughly $1 US or 1 unit basically. So yeah, that's on the way, that's already testing, that should be out very soon. I've also heard rumours on my travels that we'll have an Aussie dollar tether very soon, which is going to be absolutely awesome.
Bitcoin's a little bit shaky, all of it's like the flood of water with the adults and stuff, it doesn't really make that much sense. We see that sort of release from alts to Bitcoin a bit when maybe when Bitcoin like it gets shaky, then we won't see all that alts go flood.
So the question was, when Bitcoin goes down, you know, alts and everything they're priced in Bitcoin and it drags everything down. So again, it comes back to the market being young and in its infancy. As I touched on already, all these things in different industries, it should be uncorrelated. You know, if Facebook goes down in price, YouTube doesn't go down in price, or Apple or Amazon on the stock market. Again, it just shows that we're a long way off mass adoption. So Ethereum's had a fantastic run the past 4 weeks or so when Bitcoin's gone sideways to lower. So we're starting to see correlations break. Yeah, I'd love to see things move independently going forward.
Ultimately, the way that we stop that before the institutional money comes in is by us being educated and being smarter. Remember the old story of the acorn falling on a squirrel's head and the sky's falling? Yeah, you remember that story? The old acorn? Yeah, so most of the time the sky is falling. It's not falling at all. We just think it is, so therefore we react in an emotional state that is negative, and therefore what happens? A self-fulfilling prophecy, the markets fall with it. There is no reason why a company that's legit, like Horizon State, should have anything to do with Bitcoin price, and it's up to us to maintain that and to control that, and not be so goddamn emotional. Yeah, so the question is, do I see Bitcoin and other markets becoming more stable, such as traditional markets? And the answer is absolutely yes. And if you want to draw some inspiration and you want to draw some understanding and correlations, think of this thing. You might have heard of it. It's called the internet. .com, boom and bust. Very similar, and I'm not suggesting the technology or anything other than the mania behind it. I'm not suggesting we're going to get a bust. What I'm suggesting though is that the best way to sort of look at it is the NASDAQ. Now it doesn't encapsulate the entire internet in one index. It's a technology-based US index fund of technology companies, but it's about 8.8 trillion thereabouts. Okay, now we're at what? We're not even at 1 trillion. So yeah, absolutely we will see stability at some point, and we probably will go through a boom and bust cycle, because that's where a lot of great technology goes and how it begins, and that is what happens. I hope that it doesn't, but until I'm proven wrong, I will stand by the fact that I believe that markets repeat themselves. And this is a huge reason why I do what I do. Just like Nugget, and you can follow me on Twitter too, Trader Cobb, because you didn't plug me, let me plug his name. Just joking. The point is, I put out massive amounts of free content as well, and it's to help you understand that, one of my sayings is even a turkey can fly in a hurricane. And a lot of turkeys are flying, there is a massive hurricane and people are doing very, very well. What I don't want to see is people exposed when this market does get to a point where it is mature. And they think the same things that would make the money when everything was going up will actually make the money in a stable marketplace. And I see 90%, probably higher, of people in this market at the moment trading technical analysis, because remember that's my field, right? they're doing it wrong. And you try and apply that into, say, foreign exchange, and you will not make money. If the market's disappeared tomorrow, I can go back to making my living trading FX, commodities, bonds, stocks, it doesn't matter. So it's about understanding what is factual and what is not. And again, we say it enough, but I mean, it's just down to your education. It will happen.
Speaking of technical and fundamental analysis, in the first half of this year, what ICOs are you guys excited about? I know you're not being too specific, but is there like a handful that you're really excited about at all?
Well, the question is there any ICOs that you're particularly excited about? From a technical aspect, there is no such thing as a technical aspect because it doesn't list, so I'll hand that over to the expert.
I guess there was fantastic opportunities throughout 2017, and now we see John McAfee tweeting about ICO of the week. The fact is, if there's not one ICO a week that's going to be a fantastic world-changing project. So I'm very selective in what I will cover on YouTube and what I'll recommend. And a lot of people were begging me to cover certain projects that have since dumped 50 to 90% because I won't cover bad projects. And so it's definitely getting harder. You've got to read the white papers and look at the team. And as just in the stock market, if I own the 20 or 30 best companies, why am I trying to look for a new one each week? We're early adopters. If you pick the right projects, sit back and wait and watch your portfolio grow. So.
Do you think a large-scale economic downturn would be good or bad for crypto? Why?
So are we going to get a market crash?
Another drum roll for that. I see the words get past the microphone for that. Okay, so the question was, would a traditional market crash be positive or negative for cryptocurrency? More or less, yeah. A, there will be a market correction. I won't say crash because crashes happen fast, okay? Crash is actually better for us, for our mums and dads, and for those that have superannuation funds that are about to mature and go on a pension mode. Because a crash happens quickly, we get back to equilibrium, and then we can start to move forward again. We get rid of the dead wood, and we start to push forward and move in the positive direction. Right now, I traded through the 2008 to 2007-8 crash. I was in London trading a fund. It was very good for traders. It wasn't very good for investors. Now, we lost a lot of, like, when I say we, I mean us as a human race. Those of us that are lucky enough to have access to things like stock markets, shares and options and whatnot, we lost a lot of faith in what the people we used to put on a pedestal, the bankers. We thought, well, you know, Mario Bank Manager was the old 1950s saying, why do your parents still say that stuff? We saw these people as experts until they got exposed. And what did we get? We got shat on, we got angry, they didn't get persecuted, nothing happened, no jail sentences, they just went back to their yachts and silly little people. And that was us. And now cryptocurrency exists. So I personally think, and again I haven't done that 5-day course, so keep that in mind. I personally think that a crash in traditional markets, depending on how it happens, if it's a crash because of absolute systematic failure and corruption and greed, which it probably will be, if it's a crash, because human nature repeats itself, if it's a bear market, it'll be a different story. But a crash may actually hurt our trust again. And it's like, you know, you've got the partner that cheats on you once and does it again. Are you going to stick around? Are you? Cryptocurrency exists. Cryptocurrency is like a really nice guy or a really nice girl. Hasn't done anything wrong yet. So yes, I think it could. I think it could become a positive thing depending on what it is that makes it happen. Yeah. Trust.
Take a few more questions.
For Jamie, with the Horizon State, I see it being a big helper in the more developing countries. How does Horizon State help someone like Afghanistan and provinces that don't have STEM, or they can't jump on a computer?
Yeah. So the question was the sort of technology that we're developing at Horizon State, as discussed earlier. Obviously, some very clear applications into the developed nations, Australia and Great Britain and elsewhere, but also perhaps even more important potential impact in developing nations, places like Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea, and nations that aren't quite as well off as we are yet, but of course there is also a general technology divide where in Australia we have about 85% of our entire adult population with a smartphone. We've got about 95% of the entire adult population with a mobile phone, and very, 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 very close to an entire 100% of our adult population with access to at least a computer that's connected to the internet, whether that happens to be a library or an office or whatever the case is. So we are particularly fortunate in that when we start to turn on digital solutions, most of us can participate. In developing nations, it's not always the case. When you look at India, an approximate 1.5 billion people, only about 500 million of them at the moment have smartphones. Thankfully, a lot more do have access to technology in one way, shape or form. But the bottom line is that the technology we're creating isn't an all or nothing solution. We don't go into India and say, look, you're either turning on online voting tomorrow or you're not getting online voting. There are very specific steps we can put in place to ensure that this is a smooth transition. And in fact, it's largely a good thing. So one of the territories that we're looking at submitting a paper for at the moment to try and work towards being involved in the next territory-based elections is ensuring that we start with actually the remote and the rural community, who they would typically have to be sending out polling stations to, literally driving polling stations out to these remote communities. Instead, now they will have the opportunity to vote on their smartphone. And in very similar ways, that is how it will be rolled out elsewhere in developing nations. And this does a few things. One, it helps us improve the legitimacy of outcomes in our democratic processes, because with every person that is voting on the blockchain, the quality of the outcome is more assured. It can be, it is more trusted. It also means that we have an opportunity to work towards educating the constituency. So instead of just saying, look, next year you have to vote on your mobile phone, and people going, whoa, 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 internet voting, that sounds pretty scary. That's pretty insecure, right? I've seen Today Tonight. I know what the deal is. It helps us educate, and so it's about little steps to make sure that people are more comfortable with it as we roll it out towards larger and larger audiences. Now, a little bit of a tangent, using again India as an example, very, very, very quickly their entire population is going to be connected anyway. They're adopting Android smartphones that are the equivalent of 50 Australian dollars, and I personally am very, very excited about the innovation boom. If we think we've innovated, if we think Silicon Valley is impressive as a bunch of sort of people that got to the front of the line and had some early innovation that has helped us excel, when we start to see the developing nations of China and India and Africa get switched on with these mobile devices, their first computers they've ever owned, and start to educate themselves, they're going to make us all look like idiots. Like, it's going to be pretty fucking spectacular, the innovation that comes out of this next boom. The next billion people that come online, we think, wow, this Bitcoin stuff's pretty incredible, blockchain's amazing. Well, yeah, strap in again, I think.
2 more questions.
We'll keep this relatively brief to try and not steal too much of the time being Horizon State oriented. But the question was effectively, why would somebody invest in Horizon State instead of one of our competitors, of which there are many. As you mentioned, there's Earpol, also another great Australian project. We have Boule over in Europe, we have Follow My Vote in the United States, we've got Democracy Earth. And look, ultimately, the answer is, it's personal. It's independent. You use your best intuition, you use your best judgment. As a trader or an investor, you will make judgment calls based on the best information that you have. My opinion, of course, which is extremely biased, is that we have one of the strongest teams out of any of our competitors. We have made the most commercial progress out of any of our competitors. We haven't even necessarily had the greatest of head starts. I think Follow My Vote actually got started a little bit earlier than before I sort of devised this general high-level solution. So there's no right or wrong answer here. If you like hearing me speak, if you think that I've got what it takes to run a successful business, and that our market priorities are right, and our technology is probably good enough, then I'd welcome your investment. But I don't encourage anybody, and I don't tell anybody explicitly to invest in me. That's up that's up to them. You know, it's a judgment call, so please make up your own mind, but also hedge your bets and put some into a few of these organisations. If you think that solutions we're creating really have a genuine opportunity for change, then maybe the smart investment thing to do is to spread some of that risk. Maybe not. It's up to you, buddy.
What sort of record keeping is supposed to be keeping? It's supposed to be noting it like the price of Bitcoin and trading and then keep that record. It's a big question.
So, in a nutshell, the question was tax. Tax. I get asked every single time, and you know what? I'm not an accountant. Look, I'll touch on this very briefly because my knowledge is very brief, and I only talk about things that I know a lot about. All of these providers and platforms, they will have an order book where you can actually see your transactions. It's always wise to be monitoring your trades, logging your trades. This is a business, okay? We'll come back to that. It's a business. If I'm selling beer, since we're at a bar, my business, I'm going to keep all the receipts, right, for obvious reasons. Your trading records are essentially your receipts. Always wise to keep them. I've got them. I keep them all as well, just the same as I did when I was trading anything else. But when it comes to what the spots and neighbours about tax, we're actually meeting a bloke in Melbourne next week, and I'm going to be asking the same goddamn question. There you go.
So yeah, we are meeting some of the best tax accountants in Australia. We'll have them on the YouTube channel hopefully within a week, and we'll give you guys the contact details because it is hard, it's a grey area. Even the ATO don't really know what they're doing. So.
Last question.
I have my 13-year-old son before I invested in crypto. What do you see in blockchain technology? What kind of industries do you think it's going to majorly disrupt? Like top 3 industries people are looking at?
So what industries is blockchain going to disrupt the most? So it's the ones where we need more transparency. So obviously voting is a huge one. What things make the news headlines? What are the most, the biggest market cap? So think about things like online gambling. It's a multi-billion dollar industry. If you're playing online poker or slot machines or whatever, you don't know that they've got a fair algorithm that pays out the right percent of the time. Something like Funfair, there's a number of good companies out there that are putting that on the blockchain. Anything that demands transparency and that people are going to get improved, quality of life from the blockchain. Because unfortunately, at the moment with all these ICOs, there's a lot of people that are trying to apply blockchain technology to industries that are chugging along okay and don't really need it.
I think that's a really awesome question to finish on, because we start to think about the potential for the change that we are all a catalyst for in our world, in our societies, in our capitalist environments. I think there are clear opportunities, and I think maybe the best way to talk about them is just some obvious examples. As Alex suggested, we obviously believe that utilising blockchain technology to facilitate democratic processes such as voting is a really big deal. As we've already mentioned, Power Ledger, peer-to-peer energy trading, where we take power away from the energy giants and let Joe sell his excess power to Sue down the street and create more of a community, a local sort of economy. Really powerful stuff to start thinking about. If you think about the $13 that you pay to Spotify right now, and instead that $13 was actually distributed amongst the artists that you listen to that month without some kind of centralised institution with huge overheads, paying huge salaries, looking for huge gains and a huge bank balance. If you think about the files that you currently store on OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive, which in some cases effectively means that you sign over ownership of your data as paranoid as you might want to be or might not want to be about that. Instead, Filecoin or Seer or storage, the opportunity to actually utilise the blockchain to help keep track of the many replicated bits and bytes of your files, which are distributed amongst a peer-to-peer network of crowdsourced computers, truly democratized file sharing opportunities. The list goes on and on and on. And what we will see come to fruition first is really hard to see in terms of mass adoption of a solution built on a blockchain. But it's just undeniable and irrefutable and absolutely inspiring. I'm really proud to be a part of this industry at such an early inflection point.
So guys, just to wrap up, I guess the reason that I got into this was to start off with digital money, to take control back away from the banks, and now we have a number of industries which we've spoken about, which are making the world a better place. So we're moving away from these centralised corporations that control our data and know everything about our lives. We want a decentralised system where the rich stop getting richer and the wealth is distributed amongst those with the best ideas, the innovators. That's the world that I want to live in. Please get people to subscribe to Nuggets News. I already see all these overnight experts charging $1,000 for their newsletter to recommend to buy Bitcoin. They're going to try and cash in on it. We don't want to make the rich richer. We'll continue to produce hundreds of hours of content for free. Thanks for coming. Keep spreading the word. Cheers.
Good job, guys. Thanks, man. Well done, mate. Well done.
Look at that, James.
What's going on? I really admire the work you do. Thanks, mate. It's a lot of pressure to get me Friday. Yeah, mate. People complaining there's an extra run. I wish we had another speaker. Yeah, mate. It's just always you handle it really cool. Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. It's mate. Yeah, just got to do the best we can work with, I guess. A bit disappointing, mate. Yeah, I know. It's just we need to scope out the venue better before we get the gear, right? Well, so here next time we've got that